I hereby call the meeting of the Brockton City Council Finance Committee for Monday, November 2nd, 2020 at 7 p.m. to order. Good evening, councilors. Good evening, invited guests. Madam Clerk, item number 1.
Appointment of Ryan Burke of 81 Rockford Street, Brockton, Mass. as trustee of the War Memorial for the City of Brockton for a 3-year term. Invited Mayor Robert Sullivan, Ryan Burke.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. It's my honor to have Mr. Burke presented to you tonight. He's a Ward 1 resident. He's a husband. He's a dad. He's a U.S. Navy veteran. His family has had long roots here in the City of Brockton. In fact, his great-grandfather, Dennis Murphy, paid the ultimate sacrifice at the Strand when he was a member of the Brockton Fire Department. So it really is an honor and privilege to have Mr. Burke before you this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Burke.
Good evening, Council.
Any questions for Mr. Burke, councilors?
I make a motion for favorable recommendation.
Second.
A motion's been made and properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries favorably back to the full City Council. Thank you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, number 2.
Reappointment of Kenneth Galligan of 25 Messina Drive, Brockton, to the Traffic Commission pursuant to City of Brockton Ordinance Section 466 for a term of 3 years. Prior term ended September 2020. Invited Mayor Robert Sullivan, Kenneth Galligan.
Move to recommend favorably.
Second.
A motion's been made and properly seconded. Councilor Iannieri.
If I might, Madam Chairperson, Mr. Galligan, I do want to thank you for stepping up again to wanting to continue your service as the member of the Traffic Commission. And I do also want to thank you for your service over the years for being on that commission, even as you served as the chief of our fire department as well. Having had the great privilege of working with you over the years, I always say that at least when we're out there doing what you're supposed to be doing to find out what the constituents are looking for and those types of things, and doing that daily routine, it's great to have you there, because it's always a breath of fresh air to have somebody that has some expertise and experience that you have in knowing what the people actually do want, and not just talking about it. Let's actually see what we're looking for. So I commend you, and I thank you for wanting to step up to the plate again for another term. And as always, you've done a great job. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
Just wanted to kind of second what Councilor Iannieri is stating. Your service to the city over the past, decade or so has
27 years.
27 years has been a true asset to this city. It was a pleasure serving with you on the zoning board for that time. Your wealth of knowledge.
27 years.
27.
6 hours and 27 seconds.
Your knowledge base and what you bring to the city is really invaluable, and we appreciate your service. I also understand that you were also re-voted in as chairman of the zoning committee a month or two ago.
That's correct.
So congratulations on that. I know some of our discussions while we both served together on the zoning board, we talked about the city council and potentially ways in which the city council can help the zoning board in the way that we propagate our ordinances, our zoning ordinances. So I was wondering if you had a minute maybe to talk to us as city councilors on what we can do to help you and the zoning board to help streamline some of the issues that you may face or solve some of the
Councilor
issues.
Thompson, I don't mean to interrupt you, but we can have Chief Galligan come back before us. Tonight he's here for his reappointment to the Traffic Commission.
Oh, I misread that. I apologize. Then you also, in your time on the Traffic Commission, I've been before the Traffic Commission and then have gone with you to a few of the on the subcommittee reviews on different places out throughout this Ward 5 for traffic-related issues. And again, your wealth of knowledge and your experience in that issue is greatly appreciated. And I just want to thank you from the City Council for the work you do for the city. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, councilors.
Councilor Mendez.
Hello, how are you, Chief? I'm right here.
27 years to the left.
Yes. So I really want to thank you so much for taking on another 3 more years, because I'm also a new member in the Traffic Commission. And I just have to say, I would be completely lost if you weren't there, really opening up my eyes. And I've learned so much this year, just going around the city, learning about the history. So you've been truly an asset for me as a new counselor and also as a new member of the Traffic Commission. So I really appreciate you taking up this time and really being there just to really guide us and help us do the best for this city. And I know you truly care for the city. So thank you so much for doing that, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Counsel.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Farwell.
Madam Chair, it's all been said, but I think we should mention, in addition to being a great public servant, you're a great person, and I've known you for a long while, and that counts a lot in government.
Thank you, Counsel.
Counselor,
Yeah.
Counselor Monahan.
Yes, Mr. Galligan, Chief. How many years have you been on?
27 years.
27, okay, I thought.
Traffic and 27 on zoning.
And done a fine job. What can we talk about? Oh, and I would like to say, he is also a great hockey player besides that.
Oh.
Why are you speechless on that?
I'm going to leave that alone because you and I had tangled many times on the ice.
I will say the first time we played together, and my first shift on the ice was when we passed one out right out front. I tipped it into the top corner, and when we got on the bench, he dissected exactly how that goal was scored. So, thanks, Kenny.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Well, I can't not say anything, but I have to say I'm very thankful to have Chief Galligan in the city of Brockton, because if we had more residents like him, this city would be perfect. So thank you for all you do, Chief. A motion's been made. Oh, Counselor Cruz.
Well, now, he's my constituent.
Of course, and we're all jealous of that, so.
And I get to listen to him. I find out what streets I need to blacktop because he drives around looking at all of them. So that's 54 years that you've given us on those 2 boards. And it's no wonder that Councilor Thompson was confused what you're up for, because you're up here so many times to serve the people of Brockton. But I will say you are a lesson to what everybody that serves on a board or a commission should be. No agendas, there for the people of Brockton, not afraid to stand up for what's right, even when it's not popular. And I thank you for all you do for the city. So on that, I move the question.
Okay. Motion's been made and properly seconded for the reappointment. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries favorably back to the full city council.
Thank you, Councilors.
Madam Clerk, number 3.
Ordered, appropriation of $68,703 from Plymouth County U.S. Department of Justice Fiscal Year 20 Justice Assistance Grant, JAG, to Police Department Fiscal Year 20 Justice Assistance Grant, JAG Fund. Invited Mayor Robert Sullivan, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, Emmanuel Gomes, Chief of Police.
Mr. Clarkson?
Good evening, Madam President and members of the council. Chief Gomes is here if you have any questions, but this is a recurring grant.
Any questions, councilors?
Move to recommend favorably.
Second.
A motion's been made and properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries favorably back to the full city council. Thank you, Mr. Clarkson. Madam Clerk, number 4.
Ordered, appropriation of $150,000 from unappropriated estimated receipts to information technology, telephone. Invited, Mayor Robert Sullivan, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, Bill Santos, Director of Technology.
Good evening, Mr. Clarkson.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and members of the council. Just to provide you an overview of this item, as you may recall, when we brought this current fiscal year budget to you, we did note that we were trying in some departments to attain some level of efficiency at the direction of the mayor. One of his goals is for the budget to be more transparent and to be more reflective of the actual costs to run the city. So one of the things that we did, if you remember, is we consolidated the cell phone costs from the different budgets into one line in the IT budget. At that time, we knew and we expected that there were costs for cell phones and other technology items that were being paid out of different sections of the budget. And without some sort of forensic review, it would be very difficult to discern that. So all of those items were consolidated from each individual budget into the IT budget. And so the current amount in the budget line is $110,000, up from $42,000 the previous year. I did note this in my normal email to you, but it did send it a little later than usual. I sent it this afternoon, so I'll just go through that. So the amount in this year's budget is $110,000, up from $42,000 the previous year. When we began paying the bills under that new consolidated line item, it became apparent to us that indeed what we suspected was the case, and that there were many costs that were being paid in different lines and in different sections of different budgets. And so this transfer amount before you is a more accurate representation of what the actual cell phone costs are here in the city. So the 110 plus the 150 that we're seeking, so at about $260,000 is what we believe is our full cost. I should note to you that, that this initiative was, again, the result of an attempt to better understand those costs, and in no way reflects a lack of planning or shortcoming from the IT department. We wanted to really understand the full scope of those costs, and so in future years, all of those costs will continue to be consolidated in the IT budget, and we'll have a better handle on them and understand what those full costs are.
Thank you. Councilor Farwell.
Well, first of all, to the mayor, I think it's a great initiative. But to Mr. Clarkson, the one thing I don't understand is we're appropriating $150,000, but if you're alleviating the burden of other departments from paying the costs, why aren't we taking the money that's already been appropriated in the different departments and putting it into the IT department? Otherwise, it appears as though you're leaving them with that money to spend, I assume, however they choose to spend it.
Excellent question. We actually did do that when we first put this current fiscal year's budget before you. We did conduct an exercise that if there was a specific line in those other budgets, we took that amount out of those budgets and moved it into the IT budget. What we learned, and again, what we suspected, was there were cell phone costs being paid for in other budgets in lines other than communication. And so we did move and actually remove those costs from those other budgets, but the total cost for cell phones in the city exceeded that amount. So I don't anticipate we'll have to do this again. This is the one and only time we're really trying to better understand where those costs were, and so now we know.
So we hadn't given the other departments a sufficient appropriation. Now you've got the great scope of things, and this is what it is?
Correct.
Just so I can understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Cruz.
Thank you. Councilor Fowle kind of hit the first part of my question, was just that. So now all cell phones in the city are in this budget,
Correct.
including school department?
No.
So they have their own.
Yes.
And who oversees the policies and procedures for the cell phones, as far as what use people have for them and what they can do with texting and things like that? You know, or are these phones strictly on a program for phone calls? Who sets that policy and who monitors it?
Well, ultimately, the policy direction obviously comes from the mayor's office,
Yeah.
Cooperating with Human Resources. The monitoring of who has the cell phones is coordinated through IT. So when somebody needs one,
They actually handle it, I get that, but
Right.
who makes a decision who gets one and what they can do with it?
I would say that the case-by-case determination is generally made by the department head, but ultimately with the authorization of the mayor's office.
Okay, but I assume, and maybe, Ms. May, maybe you can, my question is just to make sure that there's no misuse of any of these. Who oversees that? Who monitors that?
Thank you. Good question, Councilor. I will share with you that when I took office, the practice was, and I've discontinued it, is if you had a cell phone and you ceased employment in the city of Brockton, you could keep the cell phone. Doesn't make any sense. It's a city asset. It shouldn't be kept by anybody that's terminated or resigns or retires. So we've been working diligently. I do want to thank Bill Santos. He has been working hours with Kerry in my office to facilitate it. In terms of your question, The data usage is going to be based upon the plan that we have. IT monitors that. If anybody is looking at something during office hours that they should not be looking at, IT can track that. If there's a public records request, which has come down, many of them come down recently.
That
IT
is, yeah.
Yes, yes. So there is a practice and procedure. A lot of it does fall on what department head decides, you know, who needs a phone versus who doesn't need a phone. But again, the fact that people were allowed to keep the phones made absolutely no sense at all. So we've stopped that.
Okay.
Bill, do you have anything else that you wanted to offer on that perspective?
No, well, I mean, just from my view, the department head generally, yes,
Thank you.
yeah, makes the decision whether or not a person needs a phone and what services they need on it. Some need texting to communicate. A lot of the custodians communicate through texting. Some don't have that plan.
Okay, well, that kind of answers a lot of my questions. So everybody doesn't have the ability to do everything.
No.
And the department head would make that
Yes.
call.
Yeah, they let us know what the needs are, and then we provide the service.
Okay, that pretty much answers my question. So the department head by department head decide what, because it's not like 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Cell phone is a tool that we all have to use now. But I just want to make sure somebody's monitoring that. So each department head is the one that's deciding what tools they have and what
They decided, and then at the end of the month, when I get the detail, we sweep through it and just make sure there are no overages, and if there are overages, we let the department head know, and we adjust the plan if needed, or if it's an abuse, you know, we put an end to it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam
All
Chair.
set, Counselor. Thank you, Mr. Santos. Counselor Thompson.
Yes, Troy, quick question. So from understanding this, it looks like the billing has been streamlined where the IT department, IT alone, will be paying the bill for all cell phones. What about the plan itself? Does each department have its own plan, or is there one plan, IT controls that one plan, and then divvies out the phones from there? Like, do we get one bill, or are we getting multiple bills for each individual department? Like, how's the billing aspect of it?
Well, I think that's part of what the mayor just explained. So the mayor's office and the IT department are working to consolidate and to combine the minutes and the plans to further create efficiencies and a positive impact on costs. Is that correct?
So to have one plan for the whole city, all under one, basically one plan. Okay, understood. That was my question. Thank you.
All set, Counselor. Counselor Castro.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Clarkson. This is my question. So with the appropriation we've been asked for this evening, that will mean, as you said earlier, the total cell phone cost for the city will be, excluding the school department, will be $260,000. How many cell phones does that cover? Do you know?
I don't off the top of my head. I don't know. We can certainly get that information for you, though.
Yes, I would be interested to know that. And who negotiates the plan? Because my husband's always getting on the phone with our cell phone company every 6 months or so. He's like dialing for dollars. What can he save money on?
I can answer that.
Okay.
Once a year, we have the sales rep come in, and they review our bills. And so we have a pool of minutes for the entire city. And, you know, if the library isn't using much, it may end up being used by another department that uses it more. But we try to, you know, then look at that and balance that. And this year, we were able to reduce the amount of overall minutes and save about $26,000. So we get a look at it about once a year, though.
That's great. Thank you, both of you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other counselors have any questions?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
A motion's been made and properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries favorably back to the full city council. Thank you. Madam Clerk, number 5.
Ordered that the sum of $2 million is appropriated to pay costs of replacing water transmission, main piping, and valves, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 8, 5, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes to the city therefore. All or any portion of this borrowing may be obtained through the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, the Trust. Any premium received by the city upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this order, less any such premium applied to the payment of cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this order in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by like amount. Further ordered that the city treasurer is authorized to file an application with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Municipal Finance Oversight Board to qualify under Mass General Law, Chapter 44A, any and all bonds or notes of the city authorized by this vote, and to provide such information and execute such documents as the Municipal Finance Oversight Board of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts may require. Invited, Mayor Robert Sullivan, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, Martin Brophy, Treasurer, Lawrence Rowley, Commissioner of DPW.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the council. So first, let me apologize for not being present at your last Finance Committee meeting. I would certainly much rather have been here with you than where I was that evening. But I did watch the tape and just wanted to offer a clarification. And first, let me emphatically state what I stated on a different topic, but related several weeks ago. This in no way limits the legislative authority of the council. And should this $2 million, should you approve this and the DPW commissioner elect to use the money that's in the water enterprise budget for a different purpose, most certainly and most emphatically, we will come back to you and seek permission to do so. So, so I watched the discussion and realized there was some back and forth about whether or not this initiative would somehow limit your ability to have a say in capital project approval in the city, and the answer is absolutely not. So both the mayor and I are committed to the capital planning process. We're excited about presenting you a capital plan probably sometime in December. What this represents, as I mentioned in my original narrative and then again today, is simply an opportunity to actually borrow $2 million and pay back less than $2 million. And so that opportunity caused us to come and seek your approval to do so. The $2 million that was appropriated by you in the water enterprise stays in that budget. If it's not used, it will then become retained earnings at the end of the year. Or if the commissioner has other projects that he wants to use that money for, then we'll come back here and inform the council of that intent. But so I think that should clear up what was discussed at your meeting, but as always, I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Councilor Fowler?
Mr. Clarkson, it does clear up some of what we discussed at the last meeting. But I would say to the mayor, when we appropriated money to the water enterprise account in the amount of $2 million for specific purposes, if we can now pay for those projects in a different way, very respectfully, I think you should take that money back because you have so many competing interests. You've got money that's needed for repairs at the Rocks Stadium and the Shaw Center. You have collective bargaining increases that have already been negotiated and signed before you even took office. Yes, the DPW could certainly use the $2 million. There are streets that have to be done. There are water mains that have to be done. But on the broad general principle of if you're replacing that original $2 million, I think you, as the chief executive, should transfer that money out and give yourself the flexibility to spend it as you need to, because we have no idea what FY22 will be. So that, and I don't know if you want to respond, but that's my problem with this is, well, we'll just leave it with DPW when I know you have so many other competing demands for appropriations and funding.
You bring a great point up, Counselor. I mean, who would have thought we would have had snow the last day of October? You know, you don't know. But in terms of the dollars that were budgeted, they're restricted because of the enterprise fund. So that's one mechanism. And I think at the end of the day, and you were on the call with me today, and the council president was, in terms of capital projects, public safety building and the like, we have a lot in the queue. To borrow money now makes sense because of the interest rate that municipalities get. I mean, it's a no-brainer in the sense of long-term. But the money that has already been appropriated with the budget, we don't even have our hard Chapter 70 number yet. We have a gap funding. The legislature did a gap funding through the month of November. I've had conversations every other Tuesday with the 3 reps and the senator. And Congressman Lynch the other day was at the Council on Aging, and I asked Stephen, what do you think about the HEROES Act? Where's the money? I think tomorrow we'll decide a lot of things, and I'm hopeful on that. But just at this point, Council, I hear what you're saying. I think it's definitely something to be considered without question, and we will do that. We're considering everything. The 150 grand that you just thank you for favorably doing that. Something that hadn't existed before. So to streamline things, Larry has a lot of projects in the queue. Some are wish lists, some are necessities. We all know that. So, I mean, I'm comfortable keeping that $2 million there right now because it's enterprise, it's restrictive. If Larry says we need to use this for X, Y, and Z, we'll come back before you. And if I feel that something more urgent will come up in the best interest of the city, I'll come back before you and say that $2 million should go here. We're just not there yet, Councilor.
All right, so I'm not trying to hamstring you, but picking up on what Mr. Clarkson said, if the $2 million originally appropriated remains where it is, we can consider that embargoed, if you will, and not to be spent until the commissioner and you come back and say, listen, we do need to dip into that for all or a portion of it, and here are the specific purposes. Have I represented that?
If Larry needs to spend $1 of that $2 million, we will come here, regardless of what it is. It's the right thing to do. So in turn, I had never heard the word embargo before until I became mayor. I just never heard of it. The state uses it all the time. But to say that it's embargoed, I would concur with that. It won't be touched. And if and when the time comes we need to touch it, any portion of that or the full amount will come back here without question.
And by the way, these comments have nothing to do with my worries about Commissioner Rowley or you.
Yeah.
It's just municipal finance and drilling down to the details and just being very protective. That's all. I want that publicly known. That.
No, Council. I used to sit up there. I used to do the same thing to other mayors. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't take it that way. You're doing your due diligence. You're doing what you need to do as a legislator. Absolutely.
Okay, and
You don't take it the wrong way, Larry.
I wanted Commissioner Rowley to know that, so I don't have,
Snow piled up on Braymore?
That's right, no problems on Braymore. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Cruz.
Thank you. And I guess, in fact, I said this 2 weeks ago. I can't think of a better department that if this is happening, we have so much to do, and a lot of that work is in Ward 1. Mine is more about the theoretical in this, and I think for Troy more than Your Honor. I look at it, let's take out Mayor Sullivan and put Mayor X in. I know that Mayor Sullivan's going to come back to us and say, okay, that $2 million, we want to do Morse Ave, we want to do, Route 123, we've got these ideas, and that's great. But my question is more about the theoretical of us as a legislative body. So back when the budget was being done, you came to us and said, I need $2 million to paint City Hall. And then you came back and said, we have a way to borrow money that we can actually do that $2 million job now for $1.5 million. Absolutely, let's jump on that. But that $2 million we approved for a project. It just seems to me that should then be going back so that, I know in this case you're going to come to us, but let's say this is 2 years from now and it's Mayor Smith and you're not here and Larry's not here. I don't like the precedent that we're setting that we're giving up, because you're saying you're going to come to us, but really that's more for almost just notification in this case. We work together and well, and again, of any department head we could have with this money, Larry needs it the most and can do the most with it. But the idea that it just feels to me like we're losing our authority of appropriation the way we're doing this, and that money is just sitting there. And even though he's saying you're going to come back, if we voted no, what you still wanted to do, what you wanted to do, you're saying you could do it. Am I reading this incorrectly?
Respectfully, yes, I think you are.
I hope I am. I mean, maybe I'm not the brightest guy up here.
Because I think, well, so you answered you asked a couple of different questions. So let me take the latter question first, and that is, should you, for some reason, not support this borrowing, could the department then revert back to the money within the budget and spend it for its stated purpose? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
But only because you appropriated it for that purpose.
Exactly.
So the other larger question is, does this in some way diminish your authority? I would say no, because I would revert back to my statement a minute ago, because the money was appropriated by the legislative body for a specific purpose. And so while the mayor and I both committed that if it was to be used for a different purpose, that certainly is out of cooperation, it's also out of a legal obligation. And so there's that fine line, and I've encountered this, frankly, many times over the last 25 years, where you try to figure out where the appropriating authority ends and the executive authority to expend begins. And I think it's an age-old question that will never be fully answered. However, I think it depends on the relationship between the executive and the legislative. But in this specific case, I went back actually today and watched the budget hearings. And while there was no specific discussion that I saw on that line in the budget, the intent of spending that money is clear based on correspondence and a memo from the engineer. And so it was crystal clear what the intent was to spend that money on. And so we're fulfilling your legislative intent, but also fulfilling our duty under the law to spend the money for that specific purpose. So this is a rare occurrence. I can't remember a time in my career where there's been a legislative appropriation, even in a town setting, and then an opportunity for us to save money by borrowing it. It's just these extraordinary circumstances.
Right, and none of us are going to say we're not going to do that. I mean, obviously.
Right, and so it's so rare that I think, but it presents a good opportunity for us to have this more academic discussion about how we approach things. And so I can say, as long as I'm here, and I know the mayor has the same feeling, you know, we will maintain that in legislative intent. But should we not be here and we're replaced by other mayors and chief financial officers, your legislative authority remains and is unchanged.
I guess that's so. I mean, so you can't spend that money without coming back to us out of the $2 million.
If we can't spend it for any purpose other than that which you appropriated it for, it's right in the budget. If you look, the line in the budget says valves, and it's $2 million. So your intent on how that money was to be spent is crystal
clear.
Right.
So you're saying that you could not spend that money without coming, and to be honest with you, I'm glad it's in this particular budget because it is unencumbered, but it is embargoed, everybody's new word. So it stays there. We know that. If it was another department not coming out of the general fund, this question might be more than academic. But, so you're telling me that you can't spend that money. I mean, we're going to now borrow the money to do the valves, and we're going to be able to get theoretically $2 million worth of value for $1.5 million or so, which is very good. I think we all agree on that. I just want to make sure that we're not setting a precedent for the future. That's, you know, that a mayor comes in, and so many things in municipal government, I mean, how many things do we do with the unions? Oh, previous practice. And you say, well, that's not what we meant. Well, too bad, that's what happened. And then a mayor and another CFO 5 years from now say, oh, no, you started doing this 5 years ago.
I don't believe so. And there are checks and balances within the system as well, because even
exactly. And that's
even if we try to do that, that's why you have a municipal auditor who makes sure that the money is spent for its stated intent. So now, I will tell you, again, in the light of day, I know, and I believe Larry mentioned at the last meeting, that there are projects that are necessary and could be done. And so I do anticipate we'll be back before you in some short order with a list of projects. We look forward to that. And asking you to transfer money within the enterprise so that he can do some other projects. Because the need most certainly exceeds the $2 million. We all know that. And because it is restricted funds within the enterprise, that's why I mentioned at the outset, if you don't spend it, it does not go to free cash, it goes to the retained earnings within that enterprise fund.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Council, any other, Councilor Nacastro?
Thank you. Mr. Clarkson, I spoke my concerns about this 2 weeks ago, and of course, I was concerned about the precedent we were setting, because I was fine with appropriated $2 million, but now it's turned into a loan for $2 million, plus another $2 million sitting there potentially for other projects. And it's not that I don't realize that there are plenty of things to be done by the DPW with those funds, but maybe, I just, in my head, it seemed to me that that money should come back into the city and we can reappropriate it, or, you know, as the mayor sees fit. If you tell me that it's going to be sitting there and that you'll come back to us if you want to spend it on something else, or if you want to transfer it somewhere else, that's fine. Then we're not setting a precedent. I think you're probably right, this won't be happening a whole lot, that an appropriation is, that a loan is substituted for an appropriation after the fact. But those were my concerns.
Yeah, and I hope we've addressed them tonight, but just to state again, so the money, under any circumstance, stays within the enterprise. So we would only come back and ask you to repurpose it within the water enterprise. It's specifically restricted within that one fund. But as we know, and as Larry has stated on many occasions, those of you on the ordinance committee, you know, several months ago in this room, we talked extensively about the amount of work, and you know, we have literally tens of millions of dollars of projects that the city could undertake in replacing the underground infrastructure, and Larry's poised to initiate that project.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All set, Councilor. Any other councilors have any questions?
Motion for favor recommendation.
Second.
A motion's been made and properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries favorably back to the full city council. Thank you, Mr. Clarkson. We also had our Commissioner Rowley here and Treasurer Brophy. Thank you for being here this evening, gentlemen. Madam Clerk, number 6.
Resolved, to invite the mayor to come before the committee of this council to discuss what has taken place to replace Bob Malley as Executive Director of the Parking Authority. Invited Mayor Robert Sullivan.
Good evening, Mayor.
I want to thank Councilor Monahan for filing this resolve. And I did speak to the council the other day, just to give you a synopsis of what's been going on. So Mr. Malley, after dedicated service to the city, retired on September 1. The hiring process started and is still ongoing. We did get some people that applied for this, working with HR. We have done some interviews. But I want to just make it clear that there has been no lapse, much like when we didn't have a city solicitor and the mayor's office was working every day to help that. We're doing the same. And what I mean by that is we're signing the payroll, we're signing expenses. Paula, who's the executive assistant over there, speaks every single day to Kerry, who I've charged. Kerry Richards, my chief of staff, who I've charged to work on this until we find the right person, whoever he or she may be. But I'll also let you know that we have dedicated staff at the Parking Authority, to the point where I get a call on Halloween night from Sal and Paula. They both left their house and they went to the carpenter garage because there was a leaky pipe that was creating water, infiltrating the fire alarm system. I called Chief Williams on a Saturday night, and I said we should probably close this. Called Sal back, and we closed it. There is no lax on this. In a perfect world, I would have liked to have someone there on September 2nd. It just hasn't worked that way. But I also want to let you know, and I can't delve too much into this, but there's another thought process that I'm working with a law department relative to maybe doing something different that the city's never done with the Parking Authority, cost containment measures, but we're trying to look at the legalese of it, and it may make sense, it may not make sense, but I'll tell you what does make sense, to have the Parking Authority back here at City Hall. There's an executive director, who was Mr. Malley, and there's an executive assistant. To pay rent across the street makes absolutely no sense. $59,000 for 2 years is the lease. That just doesn't make sense to me. It's a two-man office in the office. So my hope and my desire is to bring them back here. And space is a premium. but I think we'll be able to do that, and it's a cost containment measure just for the rental lease over there. But in terms of hiring someone, it is paramount to do that, but I can't look you in the eye right now and say I have that person, he or she, but I know it's an important position. But we've been working very well together, much like we did with the solicitor's office. I'll give you another example. When AMC came to start filming the series here, the television series, I won't say what the name is because my kids are watching this, but nonetheless, it was Paula in my office working with the law department to get compensation for AMC using parking authority space, the lot right across the street here. Same thing with Mike Thomas on the school side. They used some city and some school assets parking, and it worked out well. So, Council, I don't have the magic answer for you at this time, but that's the honest-to-God truth, what I'm just sharing with you, and we'll continue the efforts till we find that person, whoever he or she may be.
Oh, I don't think you're not, I know you're telling me the truth. So who is running it now?
I would say my office, I would say me.
Okay.
But I've charged my chief of staff to work every day with Paula. I also have Sandra helping diligently to try to vet out other candidates that may apply. You know, we did have one good candidate. He didn't live anywhere near here. He lived in another state. I don't think that's going to work out.
Okay, so we haven't really found the right person yet, basically?
Yeah, no. One thing I said when I stood here, and all of us were here that day on January 6th, I want to have skilled people that have the same shared vision for a better Brockton, and also the same ethics and morals that I have. So I'm taking my time on that one.
And so you mentioned something, you're looking into something else, but you really can't get into it?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the police chief came up with a proposition that I think is something that needs to strongly be considered. But I won't mention it until I know if it's lawful. But if it is lawful and we can do it, it will save a lot of money. And that's something that we need to do in light of COVID and the financial ramifications that we have right now.
All right, and I know the winter's coming up. We got the garage has to be taken care of and all these things. That was my concern a little bit, that we have, you know, somebody in there that knows what they're doing as far as for the winter, how to take care of the garage, the whole deal like that. So it's just been such a long time, and I was just wondering, would have been good if somebody was hired and Malley could sort of lead them through it a little training and stuff, but.
Yeah, I mean, I concur with that. I mean, I think Bob did a great job. Bob left on September 1. Had we had someone prior to that time, could have been a mentor type of situation. Didn't happen. It's been 8 weeks. But nonetheless, I hear what you're saying in terms of the winter months. But I also know, again, we have dedicated staff. We actually have a parking authority personnel employee that actually saved a life the other day at the Adams Garage. Someone was contemplating taking their own life, and Lou talked them down. So, you know, I will make a pledge that I'll have that position filled unless this other endeavor comes to fruition, which would be almost, I'll say, a merger type of concept.
So we're looking into that. Are you talking like a month down the road maybe before you find out all the information you need, or pretty quickly?
Quickly.
Okay.
Very quickly.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Thank you.
Counselor. Any counselors have any questions? No? I'll entertain a motion, Counselor.
Motion for favorable recommendation.
Second.
A motion's been made and properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries favorably back to the full city council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, everybody.
Madam Clerk, number 7.
Whereas the Cannabis Control Commission is considering regulations relating to the home delivery of marijuana products, ordered. 1. The City Council, by formal vote, opposes the current proposed regulations. 2. The City Council authorizes and directs the city solicitor to communicate to the Cannabis Control Commission a request that any regulations be postponed for 6 months to allow the city to study the impact of home delivery by outside vendors on local licensees, the impact on the city's public safety services, or to request any other appropriate relief.
Madam Chair.
Counselor Fawa.
Madam Chair, the time period to send anything to the Cannabis Control Commission has passed. Unfortunately, they have approved regulations by a 4-to-1 vote, and I move to table this item.
Second.
A motion's been made and properly seconded to table this item. All those in favor of tabling? All those opposed? The item is tabled. Councilors, that concludes our agenda. Just a reminder to everybody at home, if you have not participated in early voting, please go out and vote tomorrow, Tuesday, November 3rd. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you have any questions about where you vote or anything at all regarding elections, you can always check out the city website or contact the elections office here at City Hall. Councilors, Councilor Castro?
Thank you. And just as a PS to what you just announced, Madam Chair, the polls will be open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. There have been 2 venue changes. Ward 2, Precinct A, instead of voting at the Douglas House, they will be voting at the Barrett Russell School, 45 Oakdale Street. And also Ward 4, Precinct A, instead of Connemara Senior Living as the voting site, also formerly known as Emmanuel House, Ward 4A will be voting in the Gilmore School gym at 150 Clinton Street. Now, a number of people have expressed concerns to me about the safety and security of the voters and the poll workers at the various polling locations. And I just wanted you all to be aware that there will be a police officer assigned to each location for the entire time that the polls are open. And also, I spoke with Chief Gomes about this, and he informs me there will be 10 policing officers roving and checking on polling locations the entire time that they're open tomorrow. So I want to reassure everyone, don't be afraid to go to the polling locations, and please, please vote. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Ianieri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilors, those of you that sit on the Accounts Committee, you have a packet before you, and if you have any questions and concerns with the accounts payable warrants that have been handed to us that we'll be discussing at our meeting on Monday, November the 16th, please don't hesitate and contact Anna Marie by either a telephone call or by email, and she'll get you the information that you may be looking for. But that's our little homework assignment. So just a reminder, there will be meeting November 16th at 5:30 p.m. in the GAR room. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Cruz.
Thank you. Just a reminder to the members of the Ordinance Committee, Thursday evening at 6:30, I believe I said, here in this chamber, we'll be having an Ordinance Committee meeting. You should receive agendas tomorrow, I believe. It's a small agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Actually, I just would like to remind everybody at home as well. I heard of a really sad story of a child who lost their life to malnutrition, and I would like to remind everybody that Brockton Public Schools offers lunches to all Brockton kids, whether they're in public school or not, as well as their families. So they offer lunch and a breakfast, multiple meals. The lunches are offered at all our school locations from 3 p.m. To 6 p.m. You can just drive by, pick up whatever you need lunches for how many ever kids you have in the family. So there should be no kid in Brockton that goes to sleep hungry or has any issues with malnutrition. Brockton Public School, our school committee and our superintendent work very hard with Chartwells to make sure that our kids are well fed with a nutritious meal. So please take advantage of that. Families, you don't have to be there. If it's a grandparent, aunt, uncle, even neighbors know that somebody's in need of food. There is, Chartwells is making sure that there's meals for all our kids. With that being said, there's no further business before us this evening. This meeting's adjourned.